This month in Ankara, the head of the world's most powerful military alliance stood before cameras to address a shift in global security. He admitted that cheap, accessible drones have changed the mechanics of modern combat. NATO countries are now preparing to spend $40 billion over the next 5 years. This entire sum is not for building new weapons. It is dedicated solely to defending against drones. This is the paradox. An alliance that commands stealth bombers, nuclear submarines, and orbital satellites is scrambling to protect itself. These billion-dollar systems are being forced onto the defensive by plastic devices that, in some cases, cost less than a used car. If the world's wealthiest military is paralyzed by garage-built technology, our assumptions about which nations hold power no longer match reality. In 1916, the British Army introduced a machine that defined the next century of warfare: the tank. For decades, military strength was calculated by how many of these heavy steel platforms a nation could produce and maintain. National economies were restructured to support massive steel manufacturing, and billions were spent on armor. This established the 20th century rule. Projecting lethal force required a level of wealth that only a handful of nations possessed. Because this high cost of entry prevented smaller actors from threatening major powers, the global order remained largely predictable. The war in Ukraine is currently demonstrating the end of that predictability. Ukrainian forces are bypassing traditional battlefields, using thousands of dollars of plastic and batteries to strike targets deep behind Russian lines. By early July, these strikes hit 8 major refineries. Independent analysts confirm that roughly a third of Russia's total oil refining capacity was disabled. This led to fuel shortages and export bans across 40 different regions within Russia. A superpower with one of the largest oil reserves on Earth is now rationing gasoline at home because of tools built in repurposed factories. These strikes achieved the impact of an economic amputation, and they did it at a microscopic fraction of the cost of a traditional air campaign. One recent strike hit a target 900 kilometers from the front line. A 900-kilometer radius covers an immense area of territory. To visualize that reach, 900 kilometers is the distance between Washington, D.C. and Chicago. A low-cost, modified civilian weapon can now reach deep into an industrial heartland, far beyond the reach of any ground army. For centuries, geographic distance was a reliable shield for a nation's civilians and its industry. Today, the safety once provided by being far from the fighting has effectively disappeared. These shifts in Eastern Europe pose a direct threat to the current global security model. For 80 years, the massive cost of warfare acted as a filter. That filter has now been removed. As the price of lethal force drops, the historical advantage held by wealthy nations drops with it. Standard analysis frames this as a clever technological advantage for a smaller nation. But if $40 billion in defense cannot reliably stop a $500 drone, the threat of superior military power fails to prevent an attack. Our current sense of safety is based on a map of global power that has not been updated to reflect this collapse in cost. We are witnessing a shift where traditional dominance no longer guarantees security, leaving the global order vulnerable to anyone with a garage and a battery. For decades, global superpowers maintained order through sheer mass. Fleets afloat